Ever feel like sim racing is more frustrating than fun? You're not alone. We've all hit those walls, the confusing setups, the inaccessible hardware, the feeling of being left behind. Let's talk about it. Greetings from me, you're watching WromWrom, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing. My name is Serta and I will be your host for this video. Sim racing exploded during the reign of that guy, but fundamental flaws are holding it back. Today we're talking about why it struggles to go mainstream. For all our protests and condemnations, racing sims are relatively cheap compared to other software in the gaming niche. €40 for Automobilista 2 or Le Mans Ultimate are nothing compared to the €90 of some AAA games or Project Motor Racing. Better not go there, right? But of course, those are just the initiation. You may start on a controller or a keyboard, but soon realize it's more fun with a wheel, and after a year or so on the Logitech, you realize you need a better system. And if you want to really enjoy it, you buy a rig and pedals and VR, and your wallet will be crying bitter tears. And while we're speaking about hardware, let's address the plug and play myth. You've set up your rig, now you want to convince your system to recognize the pedals. And when you've been able to do that after 3 days of not racing, you want to pull your hair out because the wheel is failing and it's something hidden deep within the bowels of Windows and not the wheel or the wheelbase. Not to speak of problems like Automobilista 2 regularly forgetting the hardware setup and you not being able to convince it to recognize those pedals it used until yesterday evening, just 30 minutes before the race. Been there, done that. Driver updates, software updates, calibrations, recalibrations. We all have grown accustomed to start preparing our computer systems for a race about an hour before the race to be sure everything works. And then there's the learning curve, which, while this exists in every hobby, it's brutal for rookies in sim racing. The wall of force feedback, car setups and track specifics, trail braking, weight distribution, racing line. To be fair, I know of many communities which are enormously helpful towards rookies. Luckily, we sim racers tend to remember how hard it is to keep it all in mind. And may it forever be so. But imagine the sheer despair of a rookie noticing how much learning is in front of them, and then after days spent battling hardware or software to convince them to work at last. And while there are many good communities, there's also a lot of poisonous people out there. I'm looking at you, Reddit. Experienced sim racers discouraging rookies with complex jargon and gatekeeping, ridiculing people for using the one or the other sim because their sim is the one and only holy grail of sim racing, not to speak of the vitriol spouted during or after a race by some people. Pro tip: there is no such thing as the holy grail of sim racing. Enjoy whatever sim makes you happy. There's a lot to choose from, and that's grand. Another thing we lack is some sort of progression path, no way to learn advanced techniques. I know there are communities like the Evolution Racing Academy of our dear friend Christian Fengler who try to inform and educate people. But there isn't a clear way to learn the skills better, and the sims are absolutely not helping. GTR 2 had a driving school mode that taught specific skills. Why hasn't anyone copied that in 20 years? And if you remember how it was called in GTR 2, write it down in the comments because I think it was called driving school, but Ike doubts it was called that. And this last one is only slowly coming to fruition after a lot of time. Clear skill divisions. iRacing and Assetto Corsa Competizione have rating systems, but they're siloed. We need a universal standard across all sims. Added to that, and coming back to the point I made before, a rookie will feel like wasting everybody's time and will have no way to learn what they did wrong, unless they search and find a great community with helpful people and maybe even some coaching. For now, the next one's a minor gripe, but it could become bigger in the future because if you want to drive something other than GT3s, you end up getting multiple sims because each of them has that one series you like so. And if the future is like Assetto Corsa Competizione and Le Mans Ultimate, a sim for every series, this is going to get worse. From the outside, a wonderful hobby looks like an expensive niche hobby for nerds. And while I love some of the expensive products out there, it's difficult to explain, even to ourselves, why we would spend 1,000 or even thousands of euro or US dollar on a wheel or pedals. And sim racing as such does not have something like a truly intuitive onboarding experience. Some come from the hobby from motorsport, but then they have to contend with all the computer stuff that does not work out of the box. Or they come from the console world where things work, or they don't get allowed to be part of the console's hardware ecosystem. Lucky those who come from racing games on PC, as they already went through many of the rites of passage. And those who don't come from any of those funnels? I wouldn't be surprised if many give up after taking half a look at all the chaos. I understand the feeling. So, how can we make our hobby more attractive? For one, we have to make it clear when a hardware company delivers a product that is difficult to set up, something we already single out in our reviews. Also, developers should start talking to each other, maybe have a common API for hardware products so everything gets recognized everywhere. Simulcube have already taken first steps and we know they are moving ahead with those. Just watch your news. And get working on a common rating for heaven's sake. I know it means a lot of conversations and finding out the middle road, but it's not rocket science. The basics are there. All-encompassing sim racing communities like Low Fuel Motorsports or Let's Race have done a lot of that work already. But if each and every sim company does their own thing, we end up nowhere, and having to repeat the tedious basing rating steps for each new sim only to have them ignored when the next comes along. And we for one would welcome if more communities would set up mentorship programs and structured leagues for all skill levels. I wish there was a league where I could race against people just as bad as me and maybe learn from someone who's not going just to tell me to get good, but to coach me into only being half bad. We can make our hobby have a much broader appeal than it has, make it explode in similar ways or even more than it did when that guy came along. So let's demand better. Tag hardware companies about plug and play. Ask your sim developers about cross-platform ratings. Build beginner-friendly leagues in your communities. This hobby is too good to stay niche. Thanks for watching. If you want more videos of this kind, hit that like button, and subscribing helps the channel grow.